It's USU hockey game time at the Eccles Ice Center. 7 p.m. sharp tonight. In-state rival BYU arrives in town to invade Aggie home ice. Make sure they know this is the Aggies' house. Be rocking by 7 o'clock sharp to see all the hockey action. Avoid the lines. Get your tickets early at usu.edu/hockey. That's usu.edu/hockey. And day of at the Eccles Ice Center. USU hockey takes on BYU tonight, 7 p.m. Do you have your tickets?
Monday edition Clay Travis and Buck Sexton Show will be rolling into the latest on the budget mess. What's going on there? Plus, Joe Biden will undoubtedly have said something stupid over the weekend. We'll break it down for you. Plus, what else, Buck?
We still have Americans in Afghanistan and substantially more than the Biden administration has told you about. We'll update you on those left behind by Biden on the next Clay Travis and Buck Sexton Show.
10 to 1 on News Talk KVNU, 102 FM and 610 AM. The following is a paid program of commercial time on KVNU. The information, offers, and claims are solely those of the sponsor and not the opinions of this station, its affiliates, management, or employees. It's time for the Garden Guide with your host, Mark Anderson from Anderson Seed and Garden.
New research suggests that people are more likely to eat vegetables if they have a tempting name.
What would life be without homegrown tomatoes? Only two things that money can't buy, and that's true love and homegrown tomatoes.
From gardening to landscaping.
Today we are going to try and create garden eyebrows. Kind of like the flowers are sprouting directly from your hair. That makes sense.
Go! Phone lines are open at 753-KVNU or 800-369-KVNU.
Kind of like eating vegetables.
It's the Garden Guide, now on KVNU 610 AM and 102 FM.
And we welcome you to the show on this rainy Saturday morning. You hate to think that this is the end of homecoming, but at least we don't have a homecoming game for the Aggies that they have to worry about. They took care of that last night.
That's so odd, though, to have the game before the parade and all the other stuff. So, I don't know.
But I know
I'm struggling with that still.
The 5K run that's getting underway right now is kind of a sloggy mess, and the parade's not going to be much better, unfortunately.
Parade at 10 o'clock.
Yep.
Parade at 10 o'clock.
Run down Main Street.
Yep.
And of course, Main Street will be closed for about 2 hours this morning.
That's all?
I think they're saying from about 9 o'clock to 11 o'clock.
There you go.
Possibly up till noon. So
yeah, we'll see what happens.
Oh, and one other traffic alert, too, for people that may be heading south. Right now, you may want to avoid Sardine Canyon. They're moving the sheep from Manaway down into Bear River City this morning. And so 2,500 sheep right now making their way down Sardine Canyon. That's going to last about an hour, so you may want to take Valley View Highway.
That's all.
Yeah.
2,500 sheep.
They can move them pretty quick, especially when you get the Utah Highway Patrol and the law enforcement all behind them, kind of motivating them.
Move them along a little bit.
So
that sounds great.
Great show on the way this morning as we head into one of the final shows of the Garden Guide with Mark Anderson and a special guest this morning as we're talking about Halloween.
Yep, Jim Seamons is here. So glad you could be here, Jim.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
With the Utah Giant Pumpkin Growers Association.
Yep, I'm right now the president. So
wonderful. And we had some giant pumpkins this year in Utah.
We did. We had a new state record.
That is amazing. Yeah, especially with the drought conditions and the heat and everything. It had to be a little more challenging season to grow, wasn't it?
It was. We had a lot of growers drop out because of the water situation.
Yeah.
We still had a lot of growers that surprised us.
Yeah.
Ross Bowman over in Brigham showed up with 2 pumpkins over 2,000 pounds.
Which is amazing.
First pumpkins ever grown at 2,000 pounds in Utah.
And he grew 2 of them.
Yeah.
That's not fair, is it?
It motivates you if you're a giant pumpkin grower to do better.
Now, we're talking water conditions were, limited this year, and it was hot. How much do those big pumpkins pull every day?
We've had guys tell us that they can drink about 80 gallons a day through peak production.
Yeah.
And so you start figuring that out. That's a lot of water.
That is a lot of water. That's a lot of water.
Pumpkins are mostly water.
Yeah.
And when those things peak, I've had them peak as high as 80 pounds a day.
Yeah. That's amazing.
So,
and that's probably all water weight.
Yeah.
That's probably all water weight.
On average, they'll do about 45. It just depends on the genetics and the conditions.
Yeah. Now, I this week I pulled up all my tomatoes, which was difficult because my tomatoes get really big and really large root systems. And I'm pulling out root systems that are, 18 inches across, but I know a lot of those fine root hairs are breaking off. How big do the root systems on those giant pumpkins get? I mean, to pull up that much water, they've got to they've got to be pretty extensive, but
somebody did the math once, and it was something like if you measured every length of every root, it was something like 15 miles is what it would work out
of
to
root
be.
system. Yeah.
You don't only have your root system under your stump. Everywhere there's a leaf, there's a little root node underneath it, and if it gets down in the soil, it'll generate roots. And those things can be like, I had some the size of carrots, good sized carrots.
Growing.
And so they were feeding it from every point.
And that's just the part of the roots that you actually see, because you've got all the fine root hairs that just spread all the way through the soil.
Exactly. It's like a cobweb system underneath there, and it takes over everything.
Wonderful. We've got all kinds of questions for Jim. If you'd like to join our conversation this morning, 753-5868, 753-KVNU. We're talking how to grow giant pumpkins. We want to get more people in the valley growing giant pumpkins.
We do. We need to get more. We've got a few guys up here. We've got quite a few in northern Utah.
Yeah.
But we would love to have more people join the hobby and sport.
Yeah. So we're going to talk about that today. We've got other things we can visit about as well, too. Saw a lot of damage on trees this last week, and a lot of people are still trying to clean that up. Our amaryllis bulbs arrived at Anderson Seed, so there's a lot of fun, exciting things happening at Anderson's right now. We've got our Witches' Night, but also Goblins and Ghouls are welcome to show up. That's
coming up next week.
Next Saturday, yeah. So we had to kind of adjust our usual ladies' night schedule, which would have been last night. Not because of homecoming in the football game, but because a lot of our product is just barely arriving. Yeah, so we actually have 4 vendors that are getting us the rest of their product, hopefully the first part of the week. It's all shipped, and it should be here. So we're hoping by next weekend we've got the store loaded up and looking amazing. And so we thought we'd do a Witches' Night out, ghouls and goblins included, and it'll be next Saturday for Halloween. We've got a lot of kids trick-or-treating all day. And then there's a lot of great things going on Center Street as well, too. So they're doing the Witches Dance, and they've got music and all kinds of fun stuff.
It's going to be taking place all afternoon.
Yeah, all afternoon. It goes until, I think, 8 o'clock. So we'll be open until 8 o'clock at Anderson Seed, and we'll have some great specials going on for the holidays, especially all of our fall merchandise, but we'll be doing some previews of all of our Christmas and other holiday decor as well too. So should be a lot of fun, and of course cash sales going on still too.
Oh yeah, up to 75%.
All the trees are pretty much gone.
Few shrubs left.
I've got a few trees that I have been kind of encouraging along at my house because we had to plant those bare root later this summer, and so they're pretty much ready to go. So I'll maybe bring a few of those down this week, but just shrubs. We've just got a few shrubs left. All the evergreens are pretty much gone as well too, but we do have some really colorful shrubs. So every time I walk in the back door, it's like, wow, those look awesome. They should be in somebody's yard. Yeah. So cash sale still going on. Okay. Witches' Night coming up next Saturday, and holiday open house coming up in about 4 weeks. So it's really not too far away.
Well, and I know a lot of people are doing some emergency work in their yard right now, and so those shrubs may be perfect if you're looking for something to replace a tree.
We spent probably 7 hours, and we had 5 people consistently working between my yard and my mom's yard and our neighbor's yard. On Tuesday, we just worked a full day and just chainsaw, and just cleaning up and dragging branches like crazy. So we're still working on it. I've been kind of waiting to take stuff down to the green waste because I know there was a huge amount of people doing the same thing. So we've been kind of holding off. I'm hoping first part of the week, if the weather cooperates, we'll we'll go contribute our portion.
The parade of cars and trucks and trailers going up and down Second in front of the studios here have been constant the last week and a half.
Yeah, for sure. So we've got a caller.
Yes.
And if you'd like to join us, 753-5868, 753-KVNU. And I've got Jim Seamons here with the Utah Giant Pumpkin Growers Association. We're going to be talking giant pumpkins today. Who's up, Will?
We have first from Dayton, Idaho, Catherine joining us on the line. Catherine, welcome to the Garden Guide.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Pumpkin stuff sounds interesting. I've never tried pumpkins before.
Oh, so much fun.
I have a question about roses, and I heard you say this on the show one day, and I can't remember which way to do it. When I cover up my roses with the mulch, am I supposed to leave that one part showing, the part that makes it a stay the grass part, or am I supposed to cover that up?
You want to cover that up. So most of your traditional roses, hybrid tea, grandifloras, floribundas, they are grafted onto a hardier rootstock. And so the root system is actually a hardier wild rose, and then they take the desirable, beautiful rose and they graft it into that hardier rootstock, so it produces more flowers, it makes it hardier through the wintertime. There's a lot of various reasons. If you don't protect that graft and the roses die all the way down to that graft, you won't have the same rose anymore. It won't transform to the old rose, but the old rose is what will still be alive, and you'll get shoots that come off of that, and it won't be the same rose as what you've had previously.
I've had that happen to two of my red roses. One of them, sometimes it has good roses, and sometimes it has the old roses.
Yeah. And so really, technically, you want to leave that graft 2 or 3 inches above the surface, and so you can see if you have new growth that's coming up below it, so you can trim that off. And then that graft is a little bit exposed in the wintertime, and so that's when the rose can really die back to that if you don't protect them. And so before you mulch them up, we recommend 1/4 cup of magnesium sulfate and 1/4 cup of potash to make them hardier through the wintertime, and also to make it so that they will bloom more next year. Water that really well, and then cover the roses with 12 to 14 inches of your mulch, and it will kind of insulate and protect that graft. Now, that mulch isn't going to generate a lot of heat through the wintertime. What it's going to do is it's going to prevent the cold from penetrating really quickly and leaving really quickly. So it's going to slow the temperature change down around that rose to the point where it's going to take weeks for the temperature to adjust. And that's what really does the most damage, is when you have those really quick transitions, nice 60-degree weather, and then all of a sudden we're like sub-zero. And that's what really does a lot of damage to the roses. So if you can cover those up, and then when it snows a lot, blow that snow on top of the roses as well too, and that will even insulate them even more. So
I wouldn't have thought of that.
Yeah, that works great. A foot and a half of snow on top of all that mulch will compress the mulch down, but it also acts like a little snow cave and just kind of insulates and protects that rose so it won't freeze hard through the wintertime.
Okay, you said 1/4 cup of potash and 1/4 cup of what else?
Magnesium sulfate, which is Epsom salts.
Okey-doke.
Yeah.
It's written down this time, so I won't go
Wonderful.
and forget it.
Yeah, makes a huge difference. It'll make your roses about 10 degrees hardier through the wintertime, and it'll make them bloom like crazy for you next year as well.
Okay. All right. Thank you so very much.
You are welcome. Anytime, Catherine. You have a wonderful weekend, even if it's wet.
Okay, thanks.
Right.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. We'll see you.
With it being a wet weekend, this is actually a perfect time to be out in the yard, get a little planting done.
Oh, yeah.
One of the things, Mark, that you and I have talked about, especially this fall, is how you can plant trees right now. And a caller just called in and said, is it too late, though, now to plant a fruit tree?
Not at all. If you could find a good specimen right now, anytime before the ground really freezes is an excellent time to plant. So we've planted as late as the first week of December and have had great results where they wintered over just fine, but the ground wasn't like frozen and hard. Mm-hmm. And so we're not to that point yet. Hopefully we're weeks away from that, but usually it's about mid to late November when the ground freezes up, and that's usually when we recommend you stop planting stuff.
Right now, ideally, with all of the rain that we're getting, it's perfect time because you're able to keep that soil
Nice and moist,
yeah.
And getting all this moisture really is going to help with plants that struggled and were stressed this year because of the heat and the stress of lower water conditions. And getting the soil rehydrated is amazing right now. So this is a great help for next year to really get the soil hydrated up, and plants are going to respond a lot better because there's good soil moisture, and when that ground finally freezes, the soil moisture is going to be there so they can utilize that all winter long. It's going to help a lot.
And the one thing that we've always talked about over and over is when you plant those fruit trees and you say you have a 1.5 foot size root ball, then dig your hole 3 feet wide.
Yep.
Always double that. And
double the size of the root
It's going to take extra work, but it'll save you with the tree in the long run.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, they'll just do much better that
okay
way. So
we'll go back to the phone lines. We have
calls.
Tammy joining us on the line from Smithfield. Tammy, welcome to the Garden Guide.
Hi, Mark.
Hey, how are you, Tammy?
I'm good. I'm so glad you have Jim on again. I have questions for him.
Oh, awesome. He's been sitting so patiently over here waiting for phone calls. So,
I grow the big pumpkins also, and one of mine, I'm not sure of the name. Anyway, I'm not going to go with the name because I'll probably butcher it. But anyway, it has a soft flesh on it when it first starts to grow, and it gets scarred really easy. How can I prevent it from getting scarred?
So you're most likely growing the Atlantic giants. They're the big pumpkins.
Yeah, I think that's it.
The best way would be to put like a lawn chair or a small table over the top of it and then throw a sheet over it. You want to protect the skin from anything, even like a leaf slapping it when the wind blows to
Well, and
cats.
I've noticed even their own vines will scratch it up.
Yes. Yeah, those vines are really scratching. The leaves are as well, too. I've had, customers bring in, squashes and pumpkins, and they've got scratches all over them, and they're like, what's going on? Is it a disease? And it's like, I think it's just the wind last week.
And it adds to the characteristic down the road, It doesn't hurt them. It'll heal, so.
Yeah. Gives them a little bit of character.
Yeah. Yeah, the best thing is
Okay, I was to the point where I wanted to put a blanket over it or something, but I didn't know if it needed the sunlight or if covering it would help.
No, I actually keep all my pumpkins covered clear up until harvest. The sun itself will harden the skin and it'll slow the stretching, and those things will grow. You want them to stretch, so we keep them hid. Start pulling the covers off maybe mid-September to try and harden them up and bring the color out.
What do you cover them with?
Usually just a sheet.
Yeah.
Early on, I've got a bunch of throw blankets I got from Walmart.
Yeah.
Cheap ones. They're good for up to 400 pounds. After that, you got to start going to queen size, king size, blankets.
Okay.
So a thicker fabric. We're not doing like a shade cloth or anything.
just something just to protect it.
Okay.
Deer really like that soft flesh.
Oh, yeah.
And they're terrible. They'll come in and munch on them.
They ruin my squashes and pumpkins all the time.
Yeah, and so you do that. Cats love to try and crawl up on them.
And kids.
Kids, raccoons, everything.
All those pests.
Yeah.
And that brings up a good point.
Okay.
Something we had this year that we've never had in the years past is deer eating our pumpkins.
Yeah.
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 And
They love them. Yeah,
I've got an apple tree that's just 10 feet away. Why are you going after a pumpkin instead of a nice apple that's hanging there right in front of you?
So tasty. Yeah.
Yeah.
So tasty.
And you could see they just took out a couple bites, and then they realized, oh, this isn't that good, and they moved on.
Well, I've had pumpkins on a trailer ready to leave in the morning, and we've gone out. They've been covered with blankets, but the bottom part's been bare, and we've gone out and there's been bite marks in it. We've actually had them crawl on the trailer and chew on the pumpkins.
Climb up on the trailer and eat them right off the
Oh, wow.
They crawl up on my deck. Well, they don't crawl. They walk up on my deck and will eat stuff right off the deck. So, yeah. You got another question, Tammy?
Yes, I do. Also, I have a hard time knowing when they are ripe. Last year, a couple of mine went rotten because I think I let them stayed on the vine too long. And this year, I had some that didn't ripen up quick enough. They were still quite green. And so I'm wondering what's the best time to plant them and then pull them off the vine.
So planting-wise in Cache Valley, if you're going to, if you want to get it on the competitive side, you need to build a shelter, and that would be mid-April. Otherwise, you want to push for the last part of May, 1st of June, protect them from the frost because it will kill them.
Yeah.
As far as them going soft, it could just be a fungus or something that didn't develop right. They do that. I mean, I had a 1,870-pound pumpkin that started going soft on me. A lot of that comes back to luck.
Oh, okay. So, as far as leaving it on the vine clear up until October 1st, that's not going to make it soften up and overripe then, right?
No. Once that skin hardens up, you can pull them. We have our first weigh off the last weekend of September, and a lot of our growers start pulling them then, and most of them will last clear through Halloween.
Yeah, they'll hold up pretty well.
Oh, okay. About when?
At the end of September.
Oh, okay.
I've actually pulled them August and had them last clear through Christmas. You keep them out of the frost.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's good to know.
If you get that nice, hard exterior skin developed on there, they'll last for months.
Yeah, and that's where you want to still put your blanket on at night, protect it from the animals, but pull it off during the day, mid-September, and start letting the sun harden it up.
For the sun to harden it up. Okay. Yeah. All right. Well, thank you. I sure appreciate your answer. Hopefully I'll have better pumpkins next year.
Yeah, bring them to the weigh off.
So much fun.
All right. Thank you.
Hey, thanks, Tammy.
All right.
Bye.
That clears up a phone line, 753-5868 or 1-800-369-5868. As we'll go back out to the phone lines. Charles has been waiting on the line in Hyde Park. Charles, welcome to the Garden Guide.
Thank you. I just want to tell Mark what a beautiful job he did in that Center Street with those giant planter boxes with the billowing. What were they called? Sweet potato vines?
The sweet potato vines. Yes, thank you so much. We worked hard this summer to keep that looking amazing. And, we had to plant late this year, too, because of frost and various other reasons. And we had such weird weather there the end of May. We ended up planting, I think it was about the 7th of June. But, boy, they did. They turned out gorgeous this year. So thank you, Charles. We really appreciate that. Sweet potato vines, there's the green one was called Marguerite, and the darker colored one is called Blackie.
Marguerite?
Yeah.
And Blackie.
And we pulled some of those this week. So this week we kind of cleaned the flower beds up, and we were out there pulling plants. And some of those were 8 feet long.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, they were 8 feet
long.
Well,
you did such a good job on that. You inspired me so much. I hauled in all kinds of block, and I made myself a 2-foot deep 5x5 planter box. And on one corner of my planter box, on the 3 sides, I'm going to do billowing next year.
Awesome.
And I'll come down and get those, what you use, because I was so impressed.
Yep, that sounds
but
great.
Right in the corner, I want to put something in the planter box in the way of a bush, and you have bushes there still, shrubs.
We do.
My color schemes are burgundy and mint for, the bounce back colors of both.
Right.
And I'm wondering if you have anything, should I go an evergreen in there? Would that be, it's going to have direct sunlight, of course.
Yeah,
like
there's some really great minty colors in the evergreens. Unfortunately, I think most of our evergreens are gone, but for next year you could do, mint julep if you want to do like a juniper. There's some blue ice that are just really kind of, icy grayish blue color that would be really pretty. Some of the globe spruce would be excellent too. They don't grow very fast, and there's also some dwarf Scotch pine that are kind of small and globe shaped. But the deer love to eat the Scotch pine. Darn it! You gotta watch out for those. The spruce not so much, but the pines they'll nibble. But some great kind of bluish minty colors. And then if you want something with kind of a burgundy leaf to it, boy, there's some little joker. 9 barks would be amazing. They don't get very big. They'll get maybe 2 to 3 feet tall, but great burgundy, kind of reddish burgundy color throughout the summertime. Those would be excellent. Weigela would be nice also, and then they'll bloom also, so you get some flowers out of them as well.
When I water, will that interfere with the sweet potato vines? Sometimes in the little planter box, you have one plant that requires tons of water and one that doesn't want any.
Yeah. And the 9 barks and those evergreens are really pretty, they're not super water needy, and so they should coexist quite nicely. Yeah, they should work great.
Oh, yeah, that sounds good. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Appreciate that.
Yeah.
Thanks for the inspiration on those planter boxes.
Oh, you bet. It's our pleasure. And the key really is to fertilize. We fed those.
Okay.
We fed those twice a week, those beds, and we put a really highly nutritious potting soil in there as well too, that would hold the moisture, but also had a lot of good nutrient in there. And so that's really why the plants performed so well. They were getting watered consistently, but they were getting fed every 2 weeks, twice a week. Sorry, not every 2 weeks. Twice a week.
Right. Well, that leads me to one other question. I have another giant platter box that I made. It's really nice. It's stone and everything, and everything did real well this year, unbelievably well. I actually thought I had a green thumb. But the thing I need to know is when I pull everything out, because they're all annuals, do I just shake the dirt off and the roots and get rid of it as much as I can? And then do I put some supplement in now, back in there, or do I wait till spring and take all the dirt out and reprocess it?
Great question. So when we pulled all those plants out this week on Center Street, whether it was in the round planters or the big square ones, we'd pull those out, and then I'd shake all the dirt as much as I could off of the root system, and then we're going to compost all those plants. So we'll compost all that plant material. But depending on your planter and how much soil you've got in there and how much organic matter, they can kind of the soil can shrink a little bit each year. It'll decrease in volume, and so fall is actually a good time to add some organic matter. I would do like soil building conditioner, maybe some composted manures. Don't use the compost from the landfill yet. It doesn't have enough nitrogen in it, and so it's a lot of carbon, and so it's good organic matter, but it pulls the nutrient out of the soil. So make sure and use a more of a potting mix or a raised bed mix, and mix some good compost in there with it as well too. But you can wait and do that in the spring as well. So
on the manure, should I use cow or
the poultry will probably be
or...
do the poultry. It'll be a little bit better than the steer. Sometimes the steer's a little bit.
Can you find rabbit compost anywhere? I can't find it.
I haven't seen any. Jim, have you seen any anywhere? Rabbit compost?
I haven't. We've got a neighbor that's got rabbits.
Yeah.
That's your best.
That's your best. Yeah.
I'll just use the chicken.
Yeah. A poultry manure will work great. You're welcome. Thanks for calling this morning, Charles.
Oh, thank you so much.
All right. You have a good one.
Bye.
All right.
And just before we hit the bottom of the hour break, let's go to Chris. Chris has been holding on the line from Logan. Chris, welcome to the Garden Guide.
Oh, thank you. I just love your show.
Oh, thanks so much, Chris.
Okay, so I took your advice and I cleaned out my flower beds, and I found some spots that have slime. What is it, and what do I do for it?
Okay, so you've got some spots that have what in it, like slime?
Slimy. Yeah,
So
it's like slimy goop. I don't know what it is.
It could be just, some of the plants as they start to deteriorate, and we have had some really cold temperatures, and so some of the plants have completely died back, and others are still kind of growing and looking good still. Some of those ones that have died back early, they will start to deteriorate, and they can get kind of slimy. That's true. So even this week when we were pulling a lot of the flowers, out of the flower beds there on Center Street, there were zinnias that were still blooming, and there were petunias that were still blooming and looking great, but some of the other flowers in there had died from the frost completely, and they were just starting to fall apart. And so go ahead.
The slime was in the soil.
Yeah. And that could be the root system deteriorating. So if you've got a big, extensive root system on a plant that has died down and then it starts to deteriorate, especially with wet conditions that we've had the last month. I mean, it's been pretty wet this whole month. They'll deteriorate and go kind of slimy. So I'm pretty sure that.
Yeah, these were irises and black-eyed Susans, and I pulled up all the dead stuff. It was under that.
Yeah. So I would suspect it's a part of some plant that had deteriorated, and that's where it was coming from. Probably not a disease or anything to have to worry about.
Okay, and I don't have to do anything about it.
No,
great.
But it is a great time to add some stuff to your soil, just like Charles had suggested, and rejuvenate those flower beds a little bit for next year. So excellent time to do that when the storm system clears out.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Chris. Thanks for calling this morning.
Bye-bye.
All right, bye-bye. Okay, take a little break.
Yeah.
All right, let's do it.
And then we'll talk more pumpkins, too, because we've got Jim Seamons here, and we're talking giant pumpkins this morning. So if you have a question for Mark or Jim, or if you just got an overall garden question, pumpkins, we're taking them all this morning. Phone lines are open at 753-5868, 1-800-369-5868. The Garden Guide continuing on the other side. .34 now on this Saturday morning. I'm Will Feelright with your news update this hour and a couple traffic alerts that we want to pass along to you this morning. First off, the Main Street area from Center Street down to 6th South is closed this hour as they are preparing for USU homecoming. Use 6th West or possibly 10th West or 2nd East as an alternate route if you are making your way north and south. Now, of course, the parade will get underway at 10 a.m. this morning and run from Center Street up to 10th North, and so that road closure will remain in effect and will actually extend up to 10th North as that parade starts at 10 a.m. this morning. Now, also, one other traffic alert, Sardine Canyon, US 8991, for those traveling south will want to use Valley View Highway this morning until about 10 o'clock as there is a sheep herd that is moving from Manaway down into Brigham City. That began about half hour ago and will continue until about 9:30 this morning. Utah Highway Patrol, Brigham City Police Department, along with the Box Elder County Sheriffs are all assisting in that road closure. It is only affecting southbound traffic through Sardine Canyon. If you are traveling northbound through Sardine, you should have no troubles. Just watch out and give law enforcement plenty of extra space. But for all southbound traffic, use Valley View Highway as an alternate route this morning. Well, it was a nail-biter last night in college football, a lot closer than I think most fans were expecting as Utah State holds on. A frantic finish by Colorado State to get a win for homecoming 26-24. After some confusion in the final seconds by the Rams, Colorado State had the ball, got their special teams unit on the field for a 42-yard field goal attempt, but fortunately for Aggies, Caden Camper's kick sailed to the left, sending Utah State into a frenzy as they get the win. Head coach Blake Anderson, after the game, admits that this was a lot closer than they had wanted.
What a game. Really good football team. Very well-built football team. Physical. And our guys accepted the challenge and did a lot of really, really good things. All three phases made huge plays. And when we needed them the most, love to have seen us get some more points on the board there late and put this thing out of reach so it didn't have to be quite so entertaining at the end.
Yeah, it definitely was entertaining. Now the Aggies will host Hawaii coming up next Saturday night at the stadium. High school action yesterday afternoon. Logan beats Cedar and moves on in the 4A playoffs. 46-24 the final there. Skyview beat Hurricane with really no trouble at all. 34-3 the final, while Bear River lost to Dixie down south 48-20 and are out. And Crimson Cliffs blanked the Mustangs 30-0. So Mountain Crest and Bear Rivers finish off their season while Skyview Logan move on. They'll face off against, of course, we've got Green Canyon and Ridgeline who had byes this week and will join the playoffs coming up for next Friday. That weather forecast calling for scattered showers to continue through the weekend as we're going to see cold temperatures. Highs expected today and tomorrow only in the 40s with overnight temperatures around the low 30s. Rain will continue into the first of next week. I'm Will Feelright with your KVNU News Update.
From ABC Sports. Hi, everybody. I'm Todd Ant. The Astros picked up where they left off in Boston using dominant pitching and scoring with 2 outs to punch their ticket to the World Series.
Breaking ball, and that's Walla pretty deep to right center. Racing back is Renfroe, still going back on the warning track. Hernandez back as well, and Hernandez stops it. He dropped it on the warning track. Scoring is Bregman. Alvarez in the second.
The call on KTRH, Yordan Alvarez got the scoring going with his RBI double in the first en route to being named ALCS MVP. Luis Garcia shut down the Red Sox vaulted lineup. The Stros shut out the Bo Sox 5-0 to clinch their third World Series berth in the last 5 years. For Houston manager Dusty Baker, who will make his first trip back to the Fall Classic since he managed the Giants in 2002, this moment feels like it was meant to be.
It's hard to anybody tell me there's not a there's not a God because it put me in this position to be with these guys here.
This is ABC Sports.
Hi, kids. Today, we're going to learn the difference between dirty and clean. See this car? It's dirty. Now, watch as it goes through Green Gorilla Car Wash. Now the car is clean. To recap, first the car was dirty. Now it's clean. Dirty, clean. You get it? And for only $14.99, get monthly unlimited washes good for any of their washes, including the $18 Jungle Wash with ceramic coating.
No one thinks their vehicle's dirty until they see what clean looks like. Green Gorilla Car Wash in Logan, and now their new location in Smithfield.
This is Darla D. Clark, former mayor of Logan, and I'll be voting for Dee Jones as your Logan City mayor. As your mayor, Dee will bring more accountability and transparency for the mayor's office and better communication in letting citizens know how their tax dollars are being spent. Dee, as your mayor, will always promote diversity for all citizens. Dee believes in community first and is ready and prepared to go to work for the Logan citizens. Dee Jones is asking for your vote as Logan City mayor.
Paid for by the committee to elect Dee Jones as Logan City Mayor.
Taking the guesswork out of gardening. It's the Garden Guide with Mark Anderson from Anderson Seed and Garden on News Talk KVNU, 610 AM and 102.1 FM.
And welcome back to the show. 8:40 now on this Saturday morning. Will Feelright in the studio with Mark Anderson and John Seamons as we're talking gigantic pumpkins this morning and taking your calls. If you have a garden question for Mark or Jim, 753-5868 or 1-800-369-5868 for the KVNU Garden Guide.
I know, I can't believe it's like 8:40 already.
I know. Time's flown
we
by.
we get something fun to talk about, and it's like, whew, the time's just gone.
Yeah.
What's more fun than giant pumpkins?
I haven't found anything.
How did you originally get started? Where did this hobby, this crazy hobby, start for you, Jim?
You know, I always wanted to grow a big pumpkin, and I'd get halfway through the summer and realize that I hadn't planted anything. And then one year we just decided, we finally planted some pumpkins, and they ended up being the size of a softball, and we're like, they're the coolest thing in the world. And then we kind of started finding out how to manipulate them, make them bigger. And each year they got a little bigger. And then I found out about Utah Giant Pumpkin Growers and found out about the seeds. There's genetics is behind a lot of it.
Yeah.
And we started pushing, and it becomes addictive is because you grow like a 400-pounder. It's cool, but you show up the way off, you got these 1,000, 1,500-pound pumpkins, and you want to be that guy. And so you start
or that
out
gal,
that
guy or gal, yes.
And so you figure out how to manipulate it, and before long, it just becomes an addiction.
And you go, I can do 1,000. I can do 1,000 pounds.
And when you break 1,000, you're like, I got to break that. And then like last year, I did that 1,400-pounder.
Yeah.
And so then you got to break that. And this year, I had that 1,800 that went down.
Yeah.
If it would have gone to scale, it would have been close to 2,000 pounds.
Yeah. Amazing.
So now the goal is try and get one that big to the scale.
Yes.
Shoot for 2,000 bucks. So when do you begin? Because most growers, we start looking at our gardens thinking February, March maybe. But
yeah. So with giant pumpkins, April 1st to April 15th is the time to start germinate your seeds.
Okay.
They last about 6 months. The fruits themselves can grow 120 days. But it's really hard because, we're battled with, in Cache Valley, especially frost conditions.
Yeah, you still have snow.
Cold conditions. So you've got to manipulate Mother Nature. So like with me, I've now got a greenhouse. I've got a 3,000 square foot greenhouse. I've got another one going in. I can grow 3 plants in that greenhouse.
Yeah.
And we do that. You're trying to get that plant up and going as early as possible, but you've got to have warm soil and warm growing conditions, which we don't have.
And the warm soil is the key. That's why you got to have that greenhouse out there to get that soil warmed up. Do you plant your seeds right out in the soil, or do you start them inside then transplant?
I start them in the house.
Yeah.
These seeds that I'm starting are $80 seeds, $100 seeds, so they get babied.
Yeah.
I mean, nobody touches them. Nobody gets to go near my grow huts. It's like, this is mine. Stay away from it.
Don't touch those. That's fun. That's fun. If someone wants to start, where do they go to get seeds? So if the seeds are if the genetic qualities of the seeds are that important, where
So all of our growers here in the state of Utah and southern Idaho, we all donate our seeds back to the Utah Giant Pumpkin Growers. And these genetics, they're brought in from everywhere. Some of them are seeds that were grown in Utah last year. Some of them, I mean, a lot of them, they're just grown around the country.
Yeah.
I mean, we're looking for that next monster pumpkin. It's like the lottery. You're trying to win it. And so we all donate back, and you can go to Utah Giant Pumpkin Growers website, and you can actually join the Utah Giant Pumpkin Growers for $30.
Yeah.
And we shoot out a seed packet that contains about 15 seeds. You know, and these seeds are each worth about $30. So you're getting, 10 to 15 seeds.
Some good quality. Now, these are coming from the giant pumpkins that you have grown.
Yeah, they're from me, from growers. I mean, like this year, we'll have seeds from Ross Bowman, who has a state record. So you're getting seeds out of pumpkins that are 2,000 pounds, 1,500 pounds, 1,000 pounds. And, you come in, you buy them. From there, you just don't start one. You start 3 or 4. If you've only got space to grow one, you want to start 3 or 4, make sure they're going.
Right.
And then plant them all, and then you kind of pick what takes off.
Yeah.
Because each seed reacts different to everybody's soil, where they're at, the climate.
The conditions.
Right. Yeah, and you never know. I mean, we've had growers, I get calls, and they're in tears. Microburst has got them.
Yeah.
And like, that's not too late. Let's find a plant for you. You reach out. There are growers that always have plants
extras
up until about the middle of June.
Yeah.
And everybody's willing to share.
That's cool.
Kind of get you going.
That's awesome. What I like is everybody wants to participate. They want to have fun, but it's like you say, they're willing to share because they know maybe next year they're the ones that get the microburst.
Yeah, and it's it's funny. I get calls daily, texts daily, and they're not just growers in Utah and Idaho. They're from around the U.S. And they're just like, hey, I've been following you on Instagram or Facebook. I got this problem. What do I do?
Yeah.
And, I'll be like, shoot me some pictures. And if I don't know, I mean, we got a network, so I shoot it out the other growers, and we kind of brainstorm. And I've even shot you texts.
Yes.
What do you do?
What's going on here? We try to brainstorm for you, and we get you through and try to get you a pumpkin.
Yeah. That's the whole goal.
Yeah, it's just build it up.
Get a big pumpkin and have some
Our
fun.
organization isn't just in Utah; it's worldwide.
Yeah.
A new world record was set this year in Italy. I believe it was 2704 was the pumpkin.
Wow. That's
2,700 pounds.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
So Italy's been having a killer year. They've had one over 2,500 pounds. They're just loving it out there.
And the record for Utah was broke this year.
Is 2142.
It's 20, and so that's what everyone's shooting for now.
Yeah, so you got to break it by a half a pound to claim the new title.
So everyone kind of looking at 2,200, saying now to put even just 1,000 pounds, 1,500 pound pumpkin. What size of a plant? I mean, you're talking a huge plant.
So most of these plants require 1,000 square feet. You can grow, 1,000, 1,500 square feet or 1,500 pound pumpkin on about 600 to 800 square feet. You don't want to skimp it lower than that.
Right.
But if you've got a small lot and you've got a garden, start buying your groceries and grow a pumpkin.
You need some space.
Yeah. Take out some grass.
So you said 600 to 800 for a minimum.
Yeah.
But 1,000 would be
1,000 feet.
1,000 square
optimal.
feet is ideal.
Wow. That is massive. And you were saying earlier that around 80 gallons a day.
That's what they project with their water, and they feed about 80 gallons a day.
Are you doing
plant.
soakers, drip? Are you doing sprinkler? I mean,
so with my setup, I do sprinklers overhead.
Yeah.
I use nozzles that are like on my irrigation pivots that are out in the field.
Okay.
I know guys that do drip tape,
right,
and they seem to do okay. What you want to do is keep your soil damp but not soaked. And consistency. Every time you water, you fertilize.
Yeah.
Every time you even go out in the greenhouse, you better have a bag of fertilizer.
Gotta feed them. Yeah.
You're just constantly just pumping them.
Yeah. That's interesting. That's what we tell people with our flowers, but that's to get them to bloom and to keep producing all year. But it's like when people come in and say they only feed their plants like once every 2 weeks, I go, do you like to be fed every 2 weeks? And they're like, well, no.
We had a grower show up to our patch tour. We go around and visit people's patches.
Yeah.
And he's like, well, I feed 4 tablespoons a week of the fertilizer he was using. And we were at Ross's place. And he asked Ross, because Ross feeds the same fertilizer. And he says, well, how much do you use? And he says, I use 2 cups a day.
Yeah. For a
So
plant
it makes
that big,
a big difference.
You
Yeah,
think about
you need
plant, you think about a plant that
It's
big, it's
huge.
like how much is it going to consume? It's like some of these larger organisms we have in our yards, trees and things, they need a lot of water. They need a lot of food.
And that's where like a lot of our growers are starting to pick up the pace here in Utah. Is for years they've been too afraid to add that little extra.
Yeah.
And we're finding that we are underfeeding.
Yeah.
And it's not just pumpkins; it's everything.
It's everything. Yeah.
And
I think we just think like our soil is so nutritious already. They're just going to have everything that they need, and that's not true.
No, they consume a wide variety of all your macro and micronutrients.
Yeah.
And they're doing it constantly.
Yeah.
I mean, they don't stop until it freezes anyway.
And we've totally found, especially with the vegetables that you're consuming, the flavor is greatly affected by the amount of minerals and micronutrients you have in your soil. So if you're lacking a lot of minerals and micros, your stuff doesn't taste as good.
Yeah, we've found that out on our tomatoes.
Yeah.
Feeding the right fertilizer
makes a
increases the quality.
Huge difference. Yeah, huge difference. I was passing out tomatoes to a whole bunch of people this year because we just had so many. I mean, I was picking like 3 bushels a week off those suckers, and so I'd start passing them out to people, and they'd come back and they're like, "Those are the best tasting tomatoes I've ever had." It's like, well, you gotta feed them,
fertilize them. So now, how many seeds are you able to pull from a pumpkin? You mentioned that a lot of the growers will share their seeds through the network. How many seeds are you able to pull from?
So on a good pumpkin, you open it up and there's 500 seeds or more, you're doing good. We've been told by top growers, if you open it up and there's less than 500, throw them all away. So
really,
the more seeds, they claim it increases your chance for better pumpkins down the road.
Interesting.
Later.
Yeah, interesting. And you're hand pollinating all those as well too, so they're getting pollinated with the right pollen.
So like myself, I try to control the breeding for next year, and so I'm finding specific plants, and I try to make sure that they cross.
Yeah.
Some mornings you don't have the luck. I mean, you take what's available.
Right.
But I grow 3 of my main plants, and they're all. I mean, we start in November picking what seeds we want. When we get the seeds, then it's kind of like, all right, who's our top lineup? And then we have a backup lineup, and then a backup lineup. So when you start your seeds, you're like, hey, if these guys don't go, then you start smuggling seeds up into there. And then when
this is my first string. This is my second string.
Yeah. Who's going to be the winner this year?
And are you using your own seeds, or are you like going and kind of adding some?
I have done. The hard part is that there's so many beautiful pumpkins out there.
Yeah.
And I want one. So there's seed auctions that start at the end of November, and a lot of the clubs, that's how they make a lot of their money for their way off.
Cool.
And growers donate to those auctions, and so you can go auction. And
so you go and there's like a picture, and you say, oh, I like how that one looks.
They'll be held on certain nights, and you learn what the hot seeds are.
Yeah.
And so the price goes up on them, and so you're bidding on them against guys all over the world.
Yeah. Interesting. I guess it's not like the steer auction you go to. You know, it's like here's the next batch. We're gonna let them run around. You get to like take a look at them and see. So I mean, you're kind of going off of
and if
photos and weight. And
there's so many auctions that if you don't get it one night, then you try again the next, and it gets crazy.
Interesting. So,
plus, is there an advantage to bringing? Say, for example, you said Italy right now is seeing a record-breaking year. What about taking a seed from over in Italy and bringing it over here? Would that better your chances, or could that possibly work?
It could. The world record before that was grown in Belgium, and there's a lot of big pumpkins coming off of that seed.
Over there.
Like my 1800.
Yeah.
Dad was the world record, and Mom was the most prominent seed growing.
Huh.
So that seed's going to be sought after, and I bet you see it go for $200-$300 a seed or more.
So you're seeing a lot of like new genetics being bred into these.
Yeah, they're trying to find the right combination.
Yeah.
I mean, are you kissing cousins, or go somewhere else?
So. It's taking genealogy to a whole new level here, Jim.
It has. Yeah. I mean, there's a website you can get on, and you can trace the genetics all the way back. It keeps track of them. I mean, you put all that information in at the weigh-offs, and then they take it and compile it.
Yeah.
And so when you get searching seeds, you start looking back who Mom and Dad and aunts and uncles and everybody are, and
For a pumpkin.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Amazing.
So
you-
interesting.
And you start finding out what you like as a grower, because everybody's got different a take on it.
Yeah.
And that's when you start going after it. Some guys breed for color. Some guys they're just breeding for size.
Right.
So.
And some are odd colors. You have to admit they're not.
They are.
Like
There's pink. There's kind of a yellow color. The bright orange are difficult to get. They're also a lot harder to grow.
Yeah.
They don't always, but a lot of times tend to be lighter. They're not as thick.
Yeah.
So the pink ones tend to be heavier.
So they don't hold up as well.
Yeah.
Interesting. That exterior color does make a difference.
It does, especially if you're taking them to events, because people will be drawn to the orange.
Right.
I mean, they still like to see a big pumpkin, but if there's a big orange one there, that's where the pictures will be.
Yeah. Yeah. That is so cool.
Amazing.
So cool.
We've got one call in here. We'll squeeze it in real quick, and then we can finish up talking with Jim as we have Todd on the line from Logan. Todd, go ahead. You're on the Garden Guide.
Hey guys, how you doing?
Doing great.
Hey, that sounds like Family Search all over again.
Squash.
So do they have
search.
the same type of genealogy for strawberries and all that good stuff too, Mark?
There's not as much interbreeding going on with the strawberries, so most of those are commercially grown. So of course they're experimenting with new varieties, and when it comes to home garden stuff, I would get this question all the time. There's no genetic modification going on with any of this home garden grown product.
Oh, okay.
So no genetic manipulation. We're talking about just good old fashioned, crosses and hybrids, the old fashioned way. But there's no splicing of genes or anything. And so this is just traditional crosses trying to find the best qualities of the parents that hopefully are going to all present themselves in the offspring as well. So.
Well, that pumpkin you guys are talking about, that pumpkin genealogy, that sounds pretty interesting.
It is pretty interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. So speaking of pumpkins, you're talking about the largest and the heaviest pumpkin and all that good stuff. I'm looking to what am I trying to say? Grow the smallest and the least heaviest pumpkins, and I have a hard time doing that. Like for table decorations and all of that
yes,
stuff.
You want some of those cute little decorative
seed
ones.
and a plant for that?
There's some very nice decorative pumpkins that are going to stay smaller, and so you can do. There's multiple varieties that we actually carry that will stay, probably softball size or a little bit bigger. And they come out and they're almost like perfect, like Spooktacular. They're almost like little clones. They all look almost exactly the same. And Weeby Little's the same way. But then you've got Jack B. Little, and then you've got some of the smaller, colorful ones. So there's a lot of breeds of pumpkins that are made to stay small and perfect for tabletop. You don't want to carve them. You just want to paint little faces on them and just use them for decor. So.
Okay, and then we had an interesting delivery at our doorstep a couple of days ago. Somebody dropped off one of those miniature medium wart pumpkins.
Yeah.
What are those called?
Yeah, so I have two varieties of warty pumpkins that we have grown. One I brought to the studio to show Jim because he's kind of interested in growing that one. It's called Warty Goblin. And Warty Goblin, we've had some that have been 10 to 15 pounds, and they've got like warts all over them. We've probably got some pictures of them on our Facebook page or on Instagram for Andersons, and they're actually really, really cool. So dark orange color on the skin, but then green and yellow and orange warts all over it. So they're really
that's the one we got.
They're really colorful. And then they've got a smaller version. It's called Toad. And it's very similar too, but it doesn't have quite as green of warts on it. But it's probably 6 or 8 inches in diameter, and lots of warts on those as well too. So those are pretty cool. Just small.
Yeah, I don't know why people were bringing that to me. They were trying to make me sign it.
Trying to decorate your porch or something. So
I guess it was. At least the deer didn't eat it.
Yeah.
Anyway,
that's the other problem.
No, okay. Yeah. Try one quick question, if that's okay.
Okay.
I was cutting back my plants, in our flower gardens, and guess what I came across?
What'd you find?
I came across grasshoppers.
There's still grasshoppers out having a heyday. So,
but they were slower. They were a lot slower in their movement this time.
Colder temperatures slows down their activity. So
I guess I can't prevent them now.
At this point, you could spray to kill the adults so they don't lay eggs. But at this point, there's not a whole lot you can do to prevent the ones that have already laid eggs for next year.
Okay.
Yeah, except till your soil.
Okay. Yeah. I'll just leave it at that, and I'll let you guys go.
Sounds good.
Because I'm sure you have other callers, and we want to wrap it up.
Our
time is about up. So thanks for calling in, Todd.
Want to mention real quick again, Witches Parade coming up next week.
Yes. So next Saturday, trick-or-treating downtown, and then there's a great activity. So we've got the Witches Dance, and we've got our Witches Night at Anderson Seed and Garden. That goes from 4 o'clock until 8 o'clock at night.
And Jim, for people who are interested in growing the biggest pumpkin,
look us up online on Facebook, Instagram, the Utah Giant Pumpkin Growers.
All right. And we'll be back next week for the Garden Guide here on KVNU.
The preceding was a paid program of Commercial Time on KVNU. The information, offers, and claims were solely those of the sponsor and not the opinions of this station, its affiliates, management, or employees.
Is right here on your radio.
Breaking news and stimulating talk. KVNU Logan, 610 AM and 102.1 FM.